Jake Lowry was 31, a freelance translator, quiet, solitary, and predictable. He lived alone in a small apartment on the northern edge of Seattle. His days were filled with the soft hum of his laptop and the steady ticking of a clock that rarely changed rhythm. Nights were quieter still, just the rain and the occasional creak of the floorboards beneath him. He didn't like crowds. He didn't like surprises. His favorite routine was his evening walk along a forest path near his home, a narrow trail winding between tall pines and spruces, ending at a small pond that caught the last light of sunset. Every evening at 7, he'd put on his headphones, play his calm instrumental playlist, and disappear into the trees. The smell of damp earth, the whisper of wind through branches. It was his escape from the world. But in late September, something about the forest began to change. The air felt heavier. The trees seemed to stand closer together. And sometimes, when Jake turned his music off, he'd hear something. Not wind, not animals. A faint rustle, like whispering. Voices speaking from somewhere between the trunks. He would stop, listen, and find nothing there. Only the trees swaying gently, as if they were pretending to breathe. One evening, Jake decided to walk farther than usual. The sun was sinking, and a pale mist began to weave through the undergrowth. The deeper he went, the quieter the world became. The crunch of his boots on the dirt was the only sound, until he realized it wasn't. There was another set of footsteps, soft, heavy, following him. He stopped. The echo stopped too. He turned around. No one. Only fog and the vague shimmer of light between the trees. He told himself it was just his imagination, or the echo of sound bouncing off the trunks. But when he walked again, he heard it once more. A single step behind his own, slightly delayed. He tried to laugh it off. Just your mind playing tricks, he muttered. And then, close to his right ear, a voice whispered, quiet and dry. Why are you still here? Jake spun around. Nothing. Just mist swirling like breath. He barely slept that night. The whisper wouldn't leave his head. By morning, his nerves had dulled into curiosity. That dangerous kind of curiosity that feels like courage. He decided to walk the trail again, to see it in daylight, to prove to himself there was nothing wrong. Halfway down the path, he noticed something new. A small wooden cabin half hidden among the trees. It looked abandoned, its windows fogged over and the chimney broken. He was certain it hadn't been there before. The door creaked open easily. The smell inside was thick, damp wood, soil, and something metallic. Dust floated in the air like ash. On the table in the center of the room lay an old leather notebook. On the cover, written in faded ink, Eleanor Lowry. Jake froze, his own last name. He opened it. The handwriting was delicate, old-fashioned. Notes filled the pages about a woman who lived in the forest, who heard the trees speaking to her at night. The last entry sent a shiver down his spine. The trees only speak when one of their own walks among them. The return trip was worse. The air had grown cold and damp, thick with the smell of rot. Somewhere ahead, or maybe behind, he heard breathing, slow, rhythmic, as if the whole forest were inhaling and exhaling at once. Leaves shifted without wind. Branches creaked in sequence, almost like the sound of something walking just out of sight. He started to run. The breathing followed, faster now, closer. Then a voice, not in his head this time, but from behind him, shouted, "Don't turn around." But he did, and saw nothing, only the silhouettes of trees, leaning toward him, their trunks slightly bent, like watchers leaning in. He ran all the way home, but even in his apartment, long after midnight, he could still hear that breathing, faint, steady, just under the sound of his own. A few days later, Jake decided to prove to himself that nothing supernatural had happened. He brought his camera and took photos all along the trail, carefully documenting everything. When he came home and uploaded them, the first few were normal. Then he saw it. In one of the photos, deep in the background, between two trees, was a face, faint, colorless, half hidden in the bark. Its eyes were open, its expression unreadable. He zoomed in. It wasn't really a face, just the pattern of the tree, twisted by shadow and light. He laughed. Just pareidolia, he whispered, that word for seeing shapes where there are none. But when he looked out the window, his smile froze. That same tree, the one from the photo, was now standing in his backyard. From then on, the trees seemed to move. At first, he thought he was imagining it, but every day when he looked outside, they were closer. One morning, they lined the edge of the street. The next, they stood just beyond his fence. By the third night, one of them cast a shadow across his window. The whispering came back, louder now, mixed with the sound of his own voice. Sometimes he'd hear himself calling from outside, repeating the same phrase over and over. "Why are you still here, Jake?" He stopped going out. He stopped answering calls. But the forest didn't need him to come to it anymore. It was already coming to him. That final night was windless. No rain. Just silence. Jake woke suddenly, sensing something wrong. From inside the walls came a faint scratching sound. Soft at first, then wetter, thicker. When he touched the wallpaper, it felt damp. Slowly, from beneath the paint, thin brown roots began to push through, writhing, growing, spreading. He stumbled back, heart pounding. The roots crept down to the floor, pulsing faintly, smelling like wet soil and something almost human. Outside, the fog had turned white, pressing against the windows. And then came the sound, a chorus of leaves rustling together, laughing quietly. Among that sound, a whisper rose, not one voice, but many, layered over each other. "We told you not to come back. Now you are one of us." When the police entered his apartment the next morning, they found no sign of Jake Lowry, but the walls were covered in a network of dry roots stretching from ceiling to floor, leaving stains shaped almost like fingerprints. His camera was still on the table. The last photo was open on the screen, a shot of the forest. In the center of the frame stood a single tree with a human face carved into its bark. Jake's face.